Welcome, everyone. It is 5:31, and I'm going to call the Concord Carlisle School Committee to order.
And I'll call the Concord School Committee to order.
And for the notes, Erin, all of the school committee members are currently present. And do I have a motion to adjourn to executive session? Want to have that up?
The Concord School Committee and the Concord Carlisle School Committee will enter into executive session under purpose 2 of the open meeting law to conduct strategy sessions in preparation for negotiations with non-union personnel, the Director of Student Services, and return to open session at approximately 6 p.m.
Second? All in favor? Roll call in. Okay, roll call.
Anderson, I. For both.
Aye for both.
Toronto, I for both.
Rainey, I for both.
Lincoln, I for both. Which I for region? Wilson, I for region. I'll see everyone at 6.
Here you go.
Okay, welcome to our viewers at home and to everyone in the audience. We are going to start with public comment, and our public comment period will be a period of 20 minutes. As a reminder, this is a meeting in the public and not with the public. The school committee will not be responding to any comments. If you are in the room and you would like to speak, you can submit a blue form that you got outside to me, and you'll be called to speak. If you're on Zoom, you can use the raise hand feature when called upon. Please state your name and address before you speak, and we will go every other starting in the room, and then we will go to Zoom, and you will have 3 minutes. So if you have a blue form and you're in the room and you'd like to speak, you can come to me. Yes, you're being recorded. So up first, we have Wilson. Please fill out the form and you can just casually bring it up to me, but I already have the form. So Wilson, you may join us at the table.
We still need to do the state your name and address that happened. That thing.
Sorry, I didn't hear you.
We still need to do the state your name and address.
Your
that
name and
happened.
address, so we have it for a minute. Thank you.
Wilson Odawan, 136 Laurel Street, Concord, Massachusetts, of course. I begin.
You may begin.
The past school committee meetings, the question of what books should and shouldn't be considered pornographic has been raised. This is on top of the book challenges on Not All Boys Are Blue and Beyond Magenta at CCHS, and some 30 or so more at other schools. I am not here to change minds. That has proven a futile task at this point. I'm here instead to provide an alternative narrative and to make sure that the school committee knows both sides of the story. This is, at essence, a struggle for the school and a struggle that is being played out across schools throughout America. And dare I say, a struggle that is playing out across America itself, not just in schools. This is a struggle in which everyone must take a side, for it is a struggle not only for the rights of the LGBTQIA community, but for human rights. As the United Nations Office of the High Commissioner for Human Rights stated, and I quote, "Discrimination against LGBTQ people undermines the human rights principles outlined in the Universal Declaration of Human Rights." Now, taking a stand against pornographic literature is to be lauded, encouraged even. But the issue is, not all boys are blue isn't pornography. According to Miller v. California, according to Miller v. California, an opinion from the United States Supreme Court itself, a book may be banned on grounds of pornography if it follows these criteria. Quote, A, whether the average person applying contemporary community standards would find that work, taken as a whole, appeals to the prurient interest. B, whether the work depicts or describes in a patently offensive way sexual content specifically defined by the applicable state law. And C, whether the work taken as a whole lacks serious literary, artistic, political, or scientific value. I can say that point C does not apply. There is at least serious political value, whether you agree with the politics or not, and in my own personal opinion, serious literary value as well. Point B does not apply either, given that the books challenged do not present sexual activity in a patently offensive manner, although they do depict sexual activity. Now, this leaves only point 1, the most vague, and therefore we need to first define prurient. Now, prurient does not actually mean sexual. That's a misunderstanding of the term. To quote the Oxford English Dictionary, prurient means, quote, having or showing too much interest in things connected with sex. It would be a gross misreading of Not All Boys Are Blue to say that its only purpose is to show sexual activity. That is very simplistic understanding of a world that deals with racism, homophobia, and intersectionality through the lenses of a memoir. I do not claim to have an in-depth knowledge of the American court system, but as far as I can tell, neither Not All Boys Are Blue or Beyond Magenta actually fall into the category of a book that could be banned on grounds for pornography. And therefore, I'm calling upon the accusing party to drop this, as it is not going to get anywhere in the end and only serves to gum up the wheels of the school administration. Thank you for your time.
Thank you. Okay, and I will go online next. If you have a public comment, you're online, please use the raise hand feature. I haven't seen no one. We have Kristen Hagerty.
Hi, my name is Kristen Haggerty, 95 Revolutionary Road in Concord. I wanted to be here today, and I apologize that I have missed a few meetings, so I'm sure everyone missed me. I'm looking at the goals of the superintendent, the goals of the school committee, and I've been in listening to some of those meetings of the formulation. And I want to make sure that as you do your work, particularly on DEIB, which is often what I comment about, that we look at both the inputs and the outputs, right? These are the things that we're doing to, help move training forward, to, increase requirements about things as well, but also think about the outputs. How are those inputs impacting our students in a subjective and objective way? And so to make sure when we are discussing goals and our progress toward them, we are applauding what we have done so far. I have not done any of that, but what you have done so far and what the school administration and teachers continue to do, and also the work that remains to be done. What are we doing to make sure that on the ground in the schools, we are hearing from students that they feel safer, that they feel more included, and a sense of belonging in a way that we can measure and report on. I think those would be important goals. The second point that I wanted to make quickly was about the public comment period. And I served on another town board, so I understand how lengthy meetings are and appreciate that. And just want to understand ways that because you are not responding to public comments, ways that the public can understand the deliberations that happen as a result of emails that are sent to you, other correspondence that the board receives, that the committee receives, and how those items are discussed and inform your decisions. So if there are opportunities for either longer public comment periods where deliberation can happen and the public can listen, I think that would be insightful into kind of what is going through your mind as you make policy, as you make decisions that affect the school. Thank you.
Thank you. And I'm going to check online to see if any of the hands raised. No one online. So next we have Robert Debris.
Thank you. Good evening. My name is Robert Pegri, 80 Wildwood Drive, Carlisle. Given the controversial nature of this subject and the relentless attacks on the integrity of our teaching profession by right-wing media, we must assure that our school staff is not only kept to the highest professional technical standards, but that taxpayers and parents maintain full trust in them. I suggest, therefore, to establish a Blue Ribbon Commission to examine how to deploy a remote-controlled monitoring system on the professional staff. That is, teachers, administrators, psychologists, social workers, guidance counselors, etc., who are in direct contact with students, especially those who suggest the use of these allegedly pornographic reading materials and are in a position to direct, teach, and modify behavior, especially sexual behavior. The first goal is to reassure parents and taxpayers that in our schools, the professional staff is driven by only one desire: the safety and well-being of the students. The second goal is to help prevent unforeseen but admittedly possible misbehavior on the part of certain staff that might give the impression that certain educational materials and their use in class are driven by not yet legal sexual motivation. If proven, this creates not just educational difficulties, but the town and taxpayers are to face expensive lawsuits. A body-worn video monitoring system has already been widely deployed on law enforcement professionals, and it has been very successful to prevent much misbehavior on one hand and prove innocence on the other. Everybody wins. Video cameras may already monitor the students too. Now is the time to monitor the teaching profession.
In the monitoring system contemplated, there will be two sensor types deployed on the professional staff. Strain sensors for those having XY chromosomes and moisture humidity sensors for those having XX chromosomes, and staff with different chromosomal distribution would not be required to participate. To ease its acceptance, a completely secure and non-intrusive radio control data collection system is considered. The data will prove that the purpose of any encounter with the students is not to arouse the staff sexually, but it is strictly to enhance the psychological and educational development of the students. Sadly, the internet is full of videos that, when taken out of context, would mislead parents and engender doubts in the integrity of the teaching profession. The system will protect them from false accusations, and I fully expect the eager cooperation of the teachers union. And finally, of course, all data collected will be kept secure and confidential, but when potentially criminal activities are noticed, they must be turned over to law enforcement. And finally, absolutely, I will be happy to volunteer my time to help the development of such science-based sensing system. Science is real. It is time to take advantage of it. Thank you for your listening.
Thank you. We'll put back online. Someone to raise hand. So any other public comment in the room? You might have someone thinking about it. We'd love to hear from you. We have time. You don't have to be prepared if you just like to speak. It's up to you. And just state your name and address.
Very good, Alex.
Alex Nugent, 88 Mildred Circle in Concord. I guess just as a young person who's been in the school system for 11 years, I'm a junior. I went to Alcott, I went to Sanborn and Peabody because the reconfiguration wasn't the thing then. And now I go to CCHS. And I think visibility matters. I've had one teacher who looks like me, who's also Asian American, in my 11 years in the school system. And until this year, I'd never had an openly queer teacher who was teaching me directly. And I think it's much easier for students to feel alone and feel like there's something wrong with them when there's no visibility to them. And so when I was younger and I didn't have adults like openly queer or not openly Asian, but you know what I mean? When I didn't have adults like that who I could see myself in, a lot of the places I would turn was to the library and to the middle school library and to the high school library and to the public library in our town. And I think it would do students a disservice to remove their access to books where they might be able to feel seen, because unfortunately, it's high school. The internet is a vast space. If you're worried about your children coming across content that you don't want them to see, I think that's up to you, but that's between you and your child. But I think removing access to books from a public library is not a decision that's fair to make for other parents. And I think there's not enough importance placed onto the great good it will do for students to feel seen in that way. And I think if there's one child who is helped by the presence of a book in the library, then I think that book should have a place there. So yeah.
Thank you. Thank you for your comment.
Thank you.
Okay, and I'll just look online. Anybody else online? We'll close it out online. Any other comment in the room?
I mean, if you'd like to make a public comment, you have to come up to the mic and you have to be a resident of the town. You may not make a public comment. Thank you. Thank you. Anyone else?
This is someone online. Sorry.
Oh, okay. Your raise hand feature isn't working. Sorry, Rachel. Would you like to speak?
Yeah, I just want to say much appreciation.
Sorry, can
to
you just state your name and address for the minutes? I'm sorry. Go ahead.
Rachel Freed, Concord Street in Carlisle. I just want to say thank you to the student, I didn't catch her name, who spoke up. I think we need to be listening to those most impacted when we think about this work, and that is the students in the school. So I just thank you for the school committee for opening the space tonight, and let's center those most impacted in this work. That is what diversity, equity, inclusion work is all about. Thanks again.
Thank you. All right. Then we're ready to close up public comment and move on to our CCHS student update. So we have with us Harry, and I know I saw Felicity. Oh, Zaria. There's Zaria. And Felicity, are you here? There she is. Okay.
Yep. Just give me 1 minute to screen share. Okay. So yeah, this is our student update. Yeah. Felicity, do you want to get started?
Sure. So, well, first of all, Happy New Year to all of you. I know it's been 10 days, but this is our first meeting of the new year. And Student Senate has also been planning a number of events for the upcoming months, like Valentine's Day celebrations. We're also thinking of doing an art night and maybe a color run. So there are lots of fun things coming up for the high school.
Yeah, for sure. And then we've also been spending some time as like a group discussing some different issues in the school. One of the things that came up a lot, and we've certainly seen in the week before midterms, is sort of restructuring the like coordinated testing days we have. Right now, the way it works is during like a big week where a lot of teachers are going to assign tests or other big projects like that, the school tries to have this overarching structure so you don't end up with like a lot of tests on one day. But I think from the student point of view and also kind of the teachers, it could be done in maybe a slightly better way. A lot of times it just seems like it's a little bit unflexible, and teachers feel like they're forced to be testing kids on a certain day that might not necessarily work best for the kids in their class.
And also, as expected, there has been a bit of an uptick in sickness after break. I don't know about Harry and Zaria, but at least in my classes, there hasn't been like too many people out, which is good news so far.
Yeah, for sure. And then also this Thursday and Friday, midterm exams are next week at the high school. So we're gonna have reading days on Thursday and Friday. And I think it's definitely a high stress time at the school, but it's good that everyone's starting to get prepared a little bit earlier, and those reading days are really gonna help out to have some time in class to actually work on things. Oh, and then also the Intersections Club is collaborating with the Esperanza Project to provide underprivileged children in Honduras with clothing. So they have a bunch of donation boxes around the school where people can drop stuff off. So that's really great. I think it's only been going on for a few days, but we're excited to see the results of that once they wrap it up.
And also, I know I talk about chorus and performing arts stuff a lot. The pop-up concerts that we had the day before winter break were also very popular. And yeah, that was really fun. And also, Zaria, you want to talk about the Cookie Fest advisory activity that we spent like 5 minutes on at the last meeting?
Yeah, well, good news is both me and Felicity won. So
Oh, all right. We're like
Amazing.
cookies.
I made sugar cookies, she made red velvet, and we won. I got best presentation, she got best tasting
Yeah, best flavor.
flavor. So that's always fun. It was really successful. I think everybody enjoyed their cookies. Seemed like everybody had a good time. It was fun.
Yeah, and Zaria, I hope you noticed that I told Harry that we should include the photo that has you in it. Yes, I also agree. That was definitely like a really fun way to see a lot of like classmates who we don't usually have that many classes with. It was really fun. Yeah. And lots of cookies.
Yeah, we also did it with the freshmen. I'm a student advisor for a 9th grade advisory, so they had their own, which was really fun.
I think it's also coming to the juniors and seniors in February.
Oh, I didn't know that. That's exciting though.
We'll get to enjoy it
I
then.
look forward to. For sure. Yeah, well, thank you so much. Sorry, I know it's a bit of a quicker update this week.
No, thank you.
Great.
Thank you. Can I just ask a question about reading days? So do you still have homework on reading days or not? Of course, my high school kids haven't told me about the reading days yet. So this is all new information for me, which is great.
It's a little bit of like a under the radar thing because the 2 days before midterms, we would probably just be reviewing for the exams anyway. But yeah, technically, like teachers aren't allowed to assign homework for that night, and then also in class, we're not allowed to cover any new content.
Oh, okay, okay. So it's similar to the past, but maybe with an
Yeah,
efficient.
for sure. It's just they've given like a more.
We've always called it that. I don't know that we've publicized it that way, but. Well, your update was excellent as usual, and don't ever worry about being brief. We love the updates, so keep it coming. And if you ever want to come to a meeting, you know where we are.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Where they go? No, okay, thank you all.
Thank you, guys.
All right, and I will move it on to recognition. So Dr. Hunter, I'll turn it over to you. We can come back to them.
So Tracy, just one thing,
Yes,
we
it's
want to
very-
promote the MLK breakfast.
Oh, yes, there's an MLA, if you want to.
No, no, it Aaron's on, online, so I don't know if you have any more details if you want to talk about,
I think it's the core breakfast, is that what you're talking about?
Yes.
MLK breakfast from core.
Mhm.
Right, so we're co-sponsoring that with a number of other groups in town. I'm gonna not have the name of the movie off the top, but now that's where we can find it. So there's a breakfast, community breakfast really, on Monday morning, starting at 8 o'clock at the high school. Our CCHS kitchen staff is preparing that and we're covering costs of that. Then the movie, I could find it if we pulled it up, is a topic really pertinent to racial history. That's a 2-hour viewing. I know CORE, through the work they've done, has secured the licenses to show it in multiple settings around town. And we're just excited to collaborate and invite people in to have breakfast, have watched the movie together as a real method of hopefully promoting equity and inclusion in town and maybe some conversation to follow. All of that's at the high school Monday morning. Thank you, Aisha, for finding that for me. Right. Great, thank you. And that's the teachers. They're on for, I told them 6:30. Okay, so we'll just keep going on. Alexa and I will talk about correspondence. You want to go first?
Sure, we had one piece of correspondence at CPS talking about abortion.
And we had 2 at the region, one about literature and one just about, something that happened at an extracurricular event. That was all we had there. And I think we could probably just move right into our discussion, just because we have a little bit of time. Let's try and be efficient tonight. So superintendent evaluation, I'm going to turn it over to Alexa to talk about that briefly.
Sure. So one of our most important duties is to evaluate the superintendent. That is done through a very prescriptive process that is sort of done with a DESI form. We do use that form, so it's pretty prescriptive. Most school committees use it. It involves each of the school committee members to submit an individual evaluation. And then there is a small committee of, it's historically, I think, been 2 people who then synthesize the 7 individual evaluations submitted by our school committee members into a summary evaluation that eventually gets presented at our meeting. So that process usually concludes in June. I think so. We have 2 sort of to-dos. If you guys could, if anyone's interested in doing the aggregated review, I did it last year I did it 2 years ago with maybe Heather out, I think. So it's a heavy lift insofar as you're doing some work here, but it's not too heavy of a lift. So if you could email Tracy if you're interested in doing that work, and then in the meantime, I will get out the form that we used And then because we have 3 members who have not participated yet in this process. I know we had 2 years ago, Dorothy pop into a meeting. I think it was just on Zoom, Dorothy, our MASC rep, to sort of do a quick review of how we do an evaluation. And if especially our 3 members who haven't participated in that process, just send Tracy a quick email if you think that'd be helpful. We can do that a couple of ways. We could do it in the public, sort of in a meeting, carve out 20 minutes, or we could set up maybe even something at a more convenient time. I don't know what would work, but
And I will say, I have there are a few different apps on the agenda tonight, and there are actually 7 slots. I just realized this today while I was doing my preparation for 2 for superintendent evaluation. We have some bargaining jobs that we need people to do. Somebody to sit on the director of student services. So maybe if you can email me your priority list of what you would like to do first, and I'll try and fit everybody in and just disperse the work through all members, if that's okay with everyone. So just kind of a priority list. After you hear everything later in the discussion, towards the end, I'll just give you the quick rundown and you can say what you would like to be on. All right.
no pressure,
No pressure.
to be on
Yes,
anything either. I don't want to
anything,
make
that's
it.
fine too.
Might be worth noting that particular one is more asynchronous than synchronous.
Yeah.
If, depending on your
Yes, and
schedules and needs.
and the majority of the work comes in the late May, early June timeframe. So that's we'll have probably several weeks as individual members to evaluate, to fill out our own evaluations, and then probably like a week or 2 for the committee to then synthesize.
MASC was making changes in the rubric. When we adopted our own notification, most recently, where do we stand now? Do we think they have a form, a structure for this that we can use without having to? Fuck with it?
Yeah, I mean, so the way that Jesse, without getting too detailed, Jesse has their own rubric. So essentially a template for the evaluation. It has, I don't know, I forget if it's 4 or 5 different categories. And then, so part of there's a secondary list, I suppose, too. The 2 people who will be on this sort of subcommittee, the form is lengthy. And there are several categories and not categories, but subcategories that won't really pertain to our year. So what we do is we evaluate their very lengthy rubric and we pull out what are called focus indicators. So they sort of narrow our lens on the evaluation. So part of the upfront work is working with the superintendent and the other person on the committee to say, okay, what were the superintendent's goals this year? What were ours? And what in this lengthy rubric is relevant to this year? Because not all of it will be, frankly. So that's a good point. So part of what we do in terms of customizing their form is through that.
What I'm hearing is 2 members will bring to us a recommendation to modify.
Yeah.
Approach yet again.
Yeah, it's again, there's just those focus indicators. And I know, at least since I've been on, there was no, it was just sort of brought to us. It wasn't really up for discussion, but take that.
And I remember watching 2 years ago,
Yeah.
and Dorothy came to the meeting to kind of explain. I was not on the committee at the time. I think I was getting ready to join. And she explained, how you should be doing the evaluation. So that might be worthwhile to do again.
Mhm.
I haven't done it. Harry hasn't done it. Sharon hasn't done it. So the 3 of us are new to this.
Anyway, it was interesting, and Dorothy does a very good job at that. So
All right, thank you for that. And just after the meeting, I'll probably just send an email on the jobs that we're looking for, just to kind of go through what the timing looks like, what the list is, whether it's evenings, in person, or on your own time. Okay. All right. We think we have our.
I have, Mrs. Walsh is here. Are both of the students here?
Yes, Tucker Norton and Christopher Lynch. I see their names there. This
Perfect.
is Tucker. I can see his face now. Christopher Lynch is. Can everybody see them?
Yes, we can. Thanks very much.
Okay, so we're going to be I'll just quickly tell you a little bit about the program for those that are listening, and then Tucker and Christopher will both speak just shortly. They won't do the whole presentation because that would take a good 45 minutes, but they'll just talk to you about what they did. So quickly, I will read what the Global Competence Certificate Program is. So the Concord Carlisle High School Global Competence Certificate Program aims to foster students' global awareness and empower them to identify their role as global citizens while gaining an appreciation for other world cultures, viewpoints, and perspectives. Exploring new cultures provides CCHS graduates with the essential skills for participating in and contributing to an increasingly globalized society. Students, what we're looking for in these students is basically to think globally, to have an increased knowledge of their relationship to the world, think about issues from a global perspective, gain an appreciation for other world cultures, viewpoints, and perspectives, communicate effectively, improve their foreign language skills or world language skills, and their ability to communicate with people across cultural and language divides, and contribute responsibly, use their global knowledge to interact and build relationships with people from other cultures, demonstrate respect, open-mindedness, understanding, and flexibility in behavior and thinking, helping others to embrace multiple perspectives. And our students, so that's what our page just kind of talks a little bit about the program. The requirements our students need to do, and I'm looking at this, so sorry if my eyes aren't looking at the camera. Our students must be in good academic standing, have strong attendance record, and they must model the core values of CCHS. Our students are studying a language, but it doesn't mean where they go is necessarily the language they're studying. But we like to have them have studied at least 3 years of language, or, for example, many of our students are growing up with another language in their household, and we like to recognize that. The students do a minimum of 20 hours of volunteer or service work. And they are challenged to connect and interact directly with another culture, and it doesn't need to be necessarily the language they're studying. But again, many of our students have families in other countries, and we like to recognize they go home and they go visit their families in other countries, and they do service work in those countries, and they speak another language, and so we like to recognize all of the work that they've done. Many of our students travel abroad, other ones volunteer locally, so we have an example of each. Christopher's did a project in Watertown through the library, and Tucker went to a different type of program where he had to speak Spanish and he did service work, and I'll let them both tell you about that. So students they don't have to travel, which is really important because some families can travel and other families can't afford to travel, or they don't have the time. So we have lots of opportunities for students to do this work in the area, depending on where they want to be. We've had students do it in Lawrence, Boston, or from your home on the Zoom working tutoring, and students traveling all over the world as well. So they do a 3-page reflection after. They write a reflection about what they gained from the experience, how much they learned, and how they'll use that in whatever they choose to do in their future. They talk about the experience, and they present us with a slideshow or a Google presentation and show us what they've learned, or they can actually show pictures with the kids that some of them are teaching students or building schools. And so they talk to a group of people and explain all the work that they've done. And then they're presented with this award. And a lot of them, it helps when they are applying to colleges, but I think most of them are not doing it for that reason, but it definitely is a nice thing to add on. So most of our students that are finishing it up, they can do it earlier, but are more juniors and seniors. But I've talked to lots of ninth graders and 10th graders and students that are looking to do this. They get the information and then they start to look into different programs that they'd like to do. So I'm going to introduce Christopher. I'm going to switch back to the Zoom screen. Let me see if I can, sorry. Christopher and Tucker are both going to talk about just a couple minutes each about what they did. And so Tucker, I'm not sure if you can see him, Tucker Norton is a senior and Christopher Lynch is a senior right now at CCHS. And I'll let Tucker, since you're next, I can see you next to me. Would you like to start?
Yeah, sure. I'd love to start. So hi, I'm Tucker Norton, senior at high school, like Ms. Washer said, at Concord Carlisle. And basically what I did is I had the opportunity to work with a bunch of great people down in the Dominican Republic through a service group called Vision Service Adventures. And during my time, I was there for 3 weeks in all of July of summer 2022. And during my time, I basically worked with the locals and worked with Visions to help build a cafeteria that will have 300 local kids that attend the school that will eat there every single day. And before, it was just kind of like a little area where there was just kind of not, there wasn't really sanitary or like anything like that, and there wasn't really any shelter. It was just kind of like a roof with sticks, and we built the cafeteria with concrete and cinder blocks and stuff like that. And we also helped run a day camp at another school that was like a mile down the road. And during that time, we would exchange, like the kids would show us Spanish while we show them English and the English phrases and stuff like that. And it was just a really great experience for me and for everyone around me that was doing it with me. And I'm just really grateful that I had this opportunity. And I just feel like I did this in a spot in my life where I wanted to escape Concord and where I wanted to work internationally to help benefit others, which I feel like I accomplished. And through this, I got to express this through the global competency that with Miss Washa and Miss O'Brien helped provide through the school. And I'm just really grateful for that.
And how many hours did you do total? Most students do way more than.
I did 60 total hours of community service. Yeah.
Okay. All right. Great. And thank you. Okay, Christopher, would you like, they have presentations, but we can provide them. I don't know where I would send them, but they're great.
So you can send them to me. It's Lori.
Okay.
And I'll get them to the committee.
Yeah,
That'd be great. We'd love to see them. Yeah.
Okay, great. Thanks. And this is Christopher Lynch, and I'll let him speak now.
Yeah. Hi. So yeah, my name is Christopher Lynch. I'm also a senior at the high school, and I actually started this work all the way back during my sophomore year. So that was when code was really prevalent, and I was looking for a really meaningful project. And my grandparents happened to be immigrants to this country, and my mom was, even though she wasn't an immigrant, she was born only a year after my grandparents immigrated. So she's told me a lot about her experience as an immigrant. And Ms. Washa actually brought to me Project Literacy, which kind of has the goal of giving people who are non English isn't their primary language, their native language, giving them language skills. And so it was really meaningful for me, just because the only reason I'm here in Concord is because my grandparents really valued that education. So with my time at Project Literacy, I tutored. Her name is Marta. She's a Spanish immigrant from Spain. She's actually from Madrid, and it was really cool. We met once a week, every Friday afternoon, and I've always wanted to TA, they call it at the high school, and so this is kind of my opportunity. And we read, I think the highlight of my time with her was reading A Long Walk to Water. It's actually happens to be a book that the CMS reads, and through this book, it's about a refugee, and we both found that because we were kind of looking at his name is Salva's experiences and thinking, oh, this is so different. We actually formed a lot of connections between our cultures, and that was just really cool. Semana Santa, it's called. It's basically it's kind of like the Spanish equivalent of Christmas, and even though the traditions look a little different, it was really cool to kind of hear some of I guess her customs, and and so we, as the weeks went on, we really got to know each other, and we still talk from time to time now. And I think also just going back to the teaching, because that was I guess one of the big reasons why I did Project Literacy. it's also really cool to be able to make kind of our lessons really meaningful to Marta. Project literacy has like a curriculum you can use, but I found really quickly that Marta, had like very specific things she wanted. So for instance, being a waitress, we had to do flashcards specific for that. And yeah, I really just enjoyed being able to be part of her journey. And yeah, she ended up passing the TOEFL exam, which was really great. I'm really proud of her, and I'm really happy I got to be part of her. I got to be part of her journey, I guess you could say. Yeah, so that was
Christopher,
my share.
could you just explain quickly what project literacy is, and where it takes place? So you were a tutor to Marta, and how many months did you tutor Marta? Just quickly, just explain that. Some of the things our students do that don't travel.
Yeah, so so I would say it was about a year. Trying to think back. Yeah, a little over a year. And project literacy is kind of just the nonprofit that basically gives people who aren't native speakers, native English speakers, I guess just like language skill, I guess you could say. And again, that was really important for Marta because she was hoping to pass the TOEFL exam. So.
Thank you. Yeah, so you worked with her an hour a week. So that was the way that you gained the certificate for over a year. And then other students travel, and we have other students that come up with different opportunities. Their parents work in hospitals, and we have a student who has a parent that works in Boston, is a doctor. And so one of our students went in to the ward where people are being treated for cancer, and the children, people who didn't have a place to bring their children or leave their children, who would bring their children in. And one of our students, they were all Spanish speaking children, and they would come in and he would help them in their schoolwork, give them art classes. So they can be very creative with what they do if they don't travel. And we try to look for something that matches with different students that do this program. So it's a very special program and very special kids. So that's a very small portion of it, and every year we have more students doing it. These were the last two to present, so I'd like to thank you both for coming on here. It's kind of it's a lot, but thank you, and you did a great job. Thank you very much.
Thank you.
Yeah, thank you so
Yeah.
much.
Yeah,
Really
thanks for having us.
Yeah, that both of you spent
Thank you
that
so much.
amount of time, really giving your own time to others, and that you can do it if you travel. Because I think that before it used to be more you would do it through travel, but you can still be here and participate in the program. And I just had a question, and then I'll leave it to the table to see if anybody has another question. How many kids do you think you have doing the certificate like every year?
Before COVID, we had a lot more, I think, because then when originally a lot of students that just happened to travel in the summer, those were the students who first started to do it. I'd say probably each year 10 to 15 originally, and then COVID happened, and then travel couldn't happen. So we had to be very creative on how to do it. Although some of the students like Christopher did project literacy, that was kind of the only option, those kind of programs for a little bit. And now it's picking up again. I just met with a student today who's going to do it in Sicily. Another student so they kind of trickle in. So I'd say right now we're more at like 4 or 5, 6 a year. And probably as we move towards traveling more and more, I think it will hopefully go back to, around 10 a year.
Right. Yeah, go ahead.
Hi, Rachel. I have a quick question. So kids, do they find you? Like, this doesn't seem to me like it's a Model UN club. This seems to be more like a custom experience. So how do kids know how to find you, and how is this program? How do you guys get the word out?
So we put it in CCHS news and the student news. Sometimes that's hard because there's so many messages there that I think they get lost, and that's just the way it is. And make announcements a lot of students in language classes hear about it. What
Yeah.
we're going to do, and Tucker and Christopher, I'm not sure if you would mind, but Tucker has agreed to go to different classes and just present in 10 minutes. And I'm sure I know Christopher very well, he wouldn't mind either. Just presenting 10 minutes to, the different classes, not just Spanish, obviously, but kind of do a little traveling show with me. We haven't done that in the past because I think more people knew about it. It's just really kind of coming back. And so one student did just come to find me today who I don't have as a student. So it's nice. So the word is getting out more, but it's definitely not out enough. So I would love to take these two, and another student, Alan Krauts, who also did it last year. He's there still. Isabella Dorian, have them maybe help me out a little bit and attend other language classes. Maybe even make an announcement in advisory that could also give it some attention. It is posted there and it has been posted. We have meetings, but also students work at their own pace, which is kind of nice. So I will be meeting with like Tucker 1 minute and then Christopher, but they're in different paths. So it's kind of it's an individual experience, but students can always write to me and I can meet with them. But we need to get more of the word out, I think, just in general, beyond the way that it's happening now. So they have agreed to do that. So hopefully we will do that soon and get some of the students going on that again.
Great. Anyone else have any questions or comments for this?
I'd like to say thank you not only for sharing the experience, but more importantly, sharing with us your motives for doing it. I think that we all benefit and are uplifted by the altruism that drove you to come to this program and support others the way you have described tonight. So thank you both very much.
Yeah, thank you. Yeah, they're great kids. Thank you.
Thank you
Thank you for giving us the time.
Bye-bye. Thank you.
Thank you. Thank you all.
Great way to start a discussion. Okay, on to back to our business, our superintendent's goals update.
Thank you. So we've done this in different ways. This year, this is the format it's taking, where I am bringing you an update mid-year, and then my job in the evaluation process is to provide you evidence and documentation and make sure you have access to the work that we've been doing. So I put a lot here, but I'm not going to go through all of it. So I thought I'd just highlight a few things and then take any questions that you have, knowing you've spent time reading it. And it's also a nice reminder of the goals I'm working on. And I think they'll correlate well with the ones you're going to talk about that you took on as a committee. So just to go in order and highlight different pieces, some of them overlap. So I actually want to start with, if you look at the work here that we've been doing on inclusion and research-based intensive services, there's a common thread of professional development that we saw as a very strong need and needed to be addressed, that we were able to provide training to all staff on a consistent basis. So we've done that through the faculty meetings at all of the schools. And we took the beginning of the year, we took all the meetings over the course of the year and divided them up in 3 categories. And this hits a number of the goals, so it's worth talking through. One being DEIB, one being MTSS, and one being special education. We asked the central office leaders of each, so Mr. Nemichi, Kristen Herbert, and Debbie Dixon, each have a 3-part series that they are traveling with to these faculty meetings. So all of our faculty meetings monthly are now training. We're not doing any of the management pieces and administrivia that we were doing. They're completely based on these trainings, at least half, if not the whole thing. So at least a 45-minute session. So 3 in DEBI, 3 in MTSS, and 3 in special education. It's been really my pleasure and privilege to get to some of these meetings. I happened to be at Willard yesterday with Mr. Nemichi, and just being able to hear the delivery in a consistent way. That's what the central office leaders are offering, is the consistency, but the fact that we have everyone there. I think some of you have been at different meetings where we've talked on the depth and strength of our optional settings, and we knew there needed to be a base built that all staff are participating in. I think we see success in that we're reaching all staff and having really rich conversations. I think we're all feeling the tug of using that time for only this purpose. And maybe there'll be some talk on how else we can get the time in
and maintain the mandated, global trainings. So that to me has been one of our biggest accomplishments. It's building us a common language across all those major topics and work that we're doing, and a consistency in the rollout in the way we're building structures. So I wanted to just highlight that as a pretty significant impact that's happening across all of the schools. If I go to the next one and talk on a bit of MTSS, you've actually had some of the data come to you. That'll continue to happen as the work evolves. I think academically, we're built strength and depth and being able to service students based on the data. The next goal will be to build that in social emotional. I was able to attend a webinar last week with some of the work Kristen's bringing in and the outside. There's actually programs now that divide tier 1, 2, and 3 in social and emotional strategies. Our goal was to build both the screeners and be comfortable with the tools we're using. And then to build in tier 1, which is why we're talking Fly 5 and responsive classroom, and then work on the actual specific work that we're going to do that's more targeted as kids are identified. So I think that's got a long way to go with the social emotional. The academic is fairly solid, and we're building data cultures that teachers are reviewing data regularly, and kids are being serviced based on that data every 6 weeks or so at all of the schools. So I think we're making great gains, and you'll certainly see evidence of that as the year continues and the data is brought to you. In terms of looking at student well-being, we've done some rebooting of challenge success and sharing that information. I mentioned Fly 5 and responsive classroom. That's a major part of the work this year is that elementary piece. And then just trying to really be sure it's a priority, if not the priority and lens we're looking through so many of the work that we're doing. I think, you've heard the kids talk about what just, an attempt, like we need the feedback from them, an attempt to say no tests on this days sometimes means they just backlog into the days prior. And if we don't ask the students how that's playing out in their world, the attempt to make change doesn't matter. The thing I want to focus on the most here is the high school schedule, because I am front sitting in that right now, because it's both got a bargaining piece to it, but also in Mike Mastrullo's absence. And we're working really collectively as an entire high school staff, which I think has been really exciting. I think the conversations, even leading to the schedule, are about all of these topics that we're talking about, whether it be equity and access or intervention and support to students. It's such a student-centered conversation that I think that's been really important and powerful on many, many levels. At the high school, I've been a couple of really amazing staff meetings over there where they've looked at YRBS data to inform the schedule decisions. And Deb Jemison, as MECO director, is talking with the staff about how we've never had a MECO student on our student senate because access to the clubs is too late in the day and after school. Like, the staff was horrified to hear that, as we all should be. So I think the schedule is breeding a structure to address student well-being, but it's also equity and access. And everyone will name that the schedule is the vehicle to so much. And it's just been a really exciting time. It's 20 years in the making of trying to put a new schedule in, not for lack of trying, not being able to find one that could successfully be agreed upon. So the thing I'll highlight there that's, I think, driving our energy is we're going to be building in Flexbox. We're still working on all the details as to what that looks like. Students are able to sign up to meet with teachers on what their needs are. Teachers are able to invite kids. Kids are able to have a study and just do work and catch up. Like the plethora of, we've met with a lot of schools, like the array of what the options are is pretty wide, and it really is about what we want it to be. But just a common time, a couple, times a week, a few times a week, where the building's all available to mix, match, do things. Where right now we're always competing up against, you're supposed to be here, so for us to do this, we've got to pull you out of that. And sort of that ebb and flow is going to be much, much more fluid. So we've had a lot of great discussions with other schools that have done this, and excited by the energy they're sharing. I've been really excited by the energy the teachers are bringing to it. We're honing in on a version that's going to be ready for some sharing with kids. We need to get back to the staff. The last we met with them, we had a few versions on the table that were sort of, narrowing down. I won't say this has been easy. There's been really hard conversations along the way too. A lot of consensus on the goals, but how to get there is sometimes a lot of discussion. But boy, what an amazing collaborative effort and we're able to have the hard conversations. And I think that alone is growth. So more to come for sure as that evolves. But that's a really exciting piece happening at the high school. And in a way, I think I would have had a lot of firsthand, but I've probably had more than expected. And that's been really a satisfying experience for me. So I think the last one I'll highlight, and then we can talk on whatever is of interest to you rather than going through all of these one by one. We've been really working on the feedback loops, the communication, input, and really seeing that our core values mean we need feedback and input. We don't do things in isolation. That is just how we want to operate. So the informational piece, and I know you get a lot of this feedback too, just communication and how to do it so people know what's happening. Trying to use as many mediums as we have has been the more recent approach, figuring if there's multiple opportunities, people are more likely to see things. So we got all the buildings on social media. We have most of them on, but not all. So we've accomplished that. So we know that that's a place we can share and celebrate, and are trying to really formalize that process a little bit more. We've been starting to talk on how to assign people to it rather than sort of this ad hoc administrator thing that's going on right now. The Friday newsletter coming out of my office that evolved, as you all know, and now feels like it's got a more user-friendly format. It's certainly got a more media-friendly format. And we're just trying to streamline that as a place that people look, not only for my message, which is still really important to me, that there's my personal message there. Not all superintendents do that. There's often a newsletter and it's all just the added stuff from other people, but it's super important that my note is there. And then really having that collective hub of a central district spot. And people are valuing that. We're getting feedback like that. So, and then I think the last is we did a lot of surveys in COVID and sort of slowed ourselves down. I think everyone had a little survey fatigue, but the equity audit that you'll be hearing about next week was a great experience that we obviously brought back this year and had a great response. We're going to put out one for the strategic plan. And the gift of the survey is if you're not able to be at a focus group or you're not sitting at a table with a particular committee, everyone's voice is heard. And so the strategic planning survey is going to go out imminently later this week or next for parents to fill out. Staff, even though all of them were at faculty meetings, we want to be sure that even the quiet voices that were there maybe are heard. And then we're going to survey all of the high school students because that voice, Harry and team did a great job of a focus group and bringing their feedback, but that was 40 some kids and there's 1,300. So we're gonna catch them as captive and do it in advisory. So they all mostly have to do it, and that's been an important step in other surveys. So I think you've got a big list there, and I'm happy to talk on any pieces you're interested in or answer any questions. And I will update this at least once more this year, later in the year, if not between now and then. In my dream world, it's like a running list that I update weekly, and you can all just see this live document. That hasn't somehow played out practically, but I do want to keep you aware of what's happening. So.
Thank you. Question on the district bulletin. Can you see what the readership is like on that?
Sure.
Yeah. And do you feel as though it's getting read?
Yeah,
I think it's
for the most. Yes, I do.
Out.
We'll never be able to say 100%, but it does seem both. If you look at the statistics of who's opening it, that's what we can see.
Yeah.
But then the feedback we get, there seems to be some nice solid readership there, which I think was the important part to me, was to build an anchor date of the week that it was expected and anticipated. And I actually picked Friday because as a parent, I saved all those things. I still did save them all till the weekend and read them all then. And I thought, why not make it fresh on a Friday? So thank you.
Really great. Really great. Any questions or comments for Lori on anything she's given to us tonight? Oh, sorry, Cynthia, sorry.
So I think you mentioned the youth risk survey was informing you on making some decisions regarding schedule and various other things. When will we as a committee go through that data?
I think we could talk about that. We didn't have it scheduled per se, but Kristen oversees that and she's due for some various updates. So we can certainly bring that. It is online if you want to look at it.
Right. But
yeah, so, yeah, we're happy to
publish it.
Talk with the chairs about
the community,
what to bring.
Whole community, because it's quite extensive.
Yes, very.
And it also compares us against some of other districts. It's really pretty interesting.
Yeah.
And they've added a lot of new questions, I think, this year.
That's really good. Yes, we can bring that back when the thing comes back. Yeah.
Thank you.
And if anyone, Kristen is at a CEF meeting tonight, so.
She's actually working with CEF on a significant ask to fund the training for 5.5 and responsive classroom across the elementary school. So she's at the high school talking with them to grateful for their interest in even hearing more about it as they decide what they're going to do.
Sarah. The question is about the MTSS, about like, how do you track utilization? I mean, it's such a, like in some sense, it's sort of nebulous because it's like the teacher's discretion to offer, right? Like, is there any tracking of the usage or the availability, or are there teachers who
Of
use it more? Or, like,
Teachers' availability to students.
I'm just
I mean,
wondering, because if someone's getting a tier 2 intervention or
Mm.
that stuff is easily monitored. This stuff instead is a little more.
I actually think the schedule is going to firm that up because there's actually a very robust software platform that the kids have to tell us where they're going to go, or they're invited by the teacher. So the accountability changes in terms of Flex Block can be an intervention block for students who need it to be. So students who go seeking help will be tracked because that's how we're going to know where they are during that block. Students who get invited by a teacher are going to be tracked because we all know that the teacher invited them and they have to be accountable to arrive. So I think the software is going to fill a lot of what you're talking about, and it'll drive all the scheduling and locations of the Flex Block. In terms of right now, it all depends. If they're invited to a really formal intervention, then certainly we're expecting them there at a time and date in a class period. I think you're probably referring more to the drop-in support and
For the like accommodations that a teacher may.
in the classroom.
In classroom,
Sure.
offer to a student.
Tracking that's harder for
Yeah.
sure. Yeah, more to think on there. Yeah.
It would
Yeah.
be an interesting thing. to know.
One thing we are working on, DCAP, is the district curriculum accommodation plan that we're mandated to have. Debbie and Kristen have been resurrecting ours. They're building-based versions of them, but we have to have one at the district level. And ours has been on the shelf for quite a while. We actually feel like we need to build that back, get that in front of teachers, and just remind them the array of accommodations that are available to them to support kids. How we track it though still has me pondering that. Yeah.
That's one of the things that I'm like,
Yeah.
you
Yeah.
monitor that. And then one of the things that came up, I was in one of the part of the Carlisle based forum about the strategic plan, and a conversation that we ended up having in a small group. There was a gentleman who talked about student mental health and the importance of focusing on all of that. And he brought up a good point. He said, everybody always talks about, and we talked about this.
Yeah,
earlier, right?
this is a good
Talks about, everyone talks about multiple paths to success. He said, but I have yet to really be able to wrap my brain around how how the students are presented multiple paths
Yeah.
to success, and where those multiple paths move kids, like
Where does the path end? Right.
go, and
Right.
how do you utilize them? So
Right.
I thought it was a good.
It is a good
sort of-
point.
Sort of,
And maybe that's part of the next 5 years is
it goes well with this conversation about the schedule, about, right, like as a way of kind of reinforcing and buttressing
yes.
not only idea of multiple paths, but actually,
Yeah.
utilization.
From conceptual to concrete. Yeah, that's a great point. And I guess I'll just find it, I didn't really name the strategic plan. It's on the list here, but we're excited with where that is. The administrative team this morning sat and took the work of the last big group meeting, and we have to make it look like it wasn't written by 50 people. So we did a little bit of, consistent language and some things like that. And just being back in it again this morning for 2 hours. It's really exciting to see what the collective feedback has come up with for next pieces and where we're going to be going. So more to come on that too, obviously.
Right. And when is that next meeting?
The next meeting is in February. I don't have the date right in front of me, but coming up.
Okay.
So the survey results need to be back. That's why we're going to try to get that out. So that'll help inform, and then the large group will reconvene and reflect on all where we're at.
Great.
Yes, thank you.
In regard to the high school schedule, it may be premature to ask this, but I'm curious, in order to create flex time, does that ultimately mean more time? Or does it mean somehow working within the confines of current school day?
All within the school, it's all within the current school day. We're allocating the time.
Does that mean that's instructional time? What would-
It could mean a little bit. That's a big part of the discussion that is happening, is where that balance is and how we make it
Could be a
successful.
Look at, no wonder.
Yeah.
Decades long.
You talking to your microphone, sorry.
Sorry, Court.
No wonder it's been an decade-long effort.
Yeah, and those are great questions, and we're looking at that very quantitatively, obviously in terms of number of minutes, but we also need teachers being very qualitative about like, what does that impact have? So we've had department meetings, a number of them. We've had cross-department meetings, because what we learned was math might have one perspective that isn't quite the same as social studies, and to get to a schedule, we have to have both of them talking together. Really rich pedagogical instructional conversations have happened through this.
Do we have a structural limitation called 900 hours, something like that?
Yeah, we still have to meet the 990. The gift we had is we had room. So we've got we're not up right against it. So we've got some room to work within that and still and come up with flexible. That is a huge issue in other districts. Our school day is long enough, and the way we've structured things previously has given us a little bit of play there.
Not to alarm anybody who's listening in, but could the change ever impact school hours at K-5, 6, 8?
I will say very loudly, no.
Good. Okay, so that one's off the table.
Yeah, this is contained to the high school within the day as we know it.
The way our districts operate, that's
Yeah.
a possibility.
Yeah.
Thank you.
And it will not touch start time either.
No, none of those basics are changing. It's all within the 8 o'clock to 2:41.
Anyone else? Hey, thank you so much. Very informative. And that brings us on to our school committee goals. So I feel like this really goes together quite nicely. So Alexa's going to share our current school committee goals, and the two of us are just going to kind of bring us through to remind us, where we're at, what we're doing, some things we've accomplished already. We have accomplished a lot. And when Alexa and I did the exercise this week of kind of going through here, and where anyone else that has anything to add that we've left out, please feel free to add it on, because it does make you feel a little bit better when these boxes are filling up with things that we're doing. So
We'll tag team. Our first goal was around communications, both internal and external. So as you'll see, most of what we're doing is ongoing insofar as when we're talking about communication, it doesn't start in September. We don't get to achieve it by October. These goals will in fact be ongoing through June, because they're all important. We obviously completed our first round of fall coffees. We will be doing those in the spring as well. So that's why that doesn't get a complete. We continue to leverage the superintendent's distribution list and her social media. We are going to start. Lori does right now put school committee updates in the weekly message. I'm sure you guys see them. They do consistently appear. We have not yet sort of put one in our own voice with our own sort of written message. Whether or not we need to do that, I'm not sure, but that's an option as well. Did we send out our QR code?
Yes, I sent out the QR code with my little graphic.
So we did finally get that done. I had the idea.
Sharon's all over that.
I had the idea. I wanted her to create 9 individual ones, and I wanted us to game it, and I wanted us to see who could get the most. I figured Domingos would win, but I was willing to not be the winner in this but we have just the one. But in any event,
you can just screenshot that on your phone, put it in your photos, save it. And if you happen to be somewhere, be like, hey, are you subscribing? I mean, I do think part of the struggle is, and as the new year just changed, I moved things into my junk mail, like from my personal email address. Like nobody wants to get another email, but I do think it's important to make the attempt to get people to subscribe to our school committee.
I think that QR code looks quite snazzy.
Yes, snazzy.
So I appreciate that.
We added 10 people.
While
you're talking, you tell us. We wanted to double it, right? Was it?
Yeah, we thought
start
to
at?
double it. I think we thought it 200, 400. I don't remember. 200. I don't remember.
We're under 300.
Okay, under 300. 600 then.
Keep talking.
Okay, yep. So, next, Tracy has done some work. We are going to have a roundtable with other chairs in districts that are close to us and sort of similar to us. That's scheduled for January 25th, and we will report on that. You've gotten some RSVPs
Yes,
in, I think.
I think we probably have like 4 or 5 people coming, and it's Carlisle, Lincoln, Sudbury, Weston, Bedford. They're all districts that I think used to go to the EDCO roundtable. So we're just trying to create a very informal one. I think people are really, AB is on there, in that one district. So hopefully we'll get some communication going amongst the other school committees. Just kind of see what's going on out there. I think it's helpful to always talk to people about what's happening.
And this is not on our goals, and I don't know why, but similar to that, our new member onboarding committee had their first meeting this morning where we sort of identified 3 goals. We can update that, give you guys a little report on our next agenda.
471.
Oh,
Okay. Bingo.
And I have an 80% open rate on the Friday email.
QR code.
80.
Wow,
That's really good.
That's really
that's extraordinary. Okay.
This data thing's kind of fun, huh?
Yeah.
When you like to.
We have obviously done our practices and protocols. It's been complete since the onset of the school year. And then we were able to successfully have a schedule a follow-up meeting with Rob Evans. So that will move to complete within the next 30 days. I like the
Love that. Okay, and I'm going to go on to the professional practice goal of the budget. So we scheduled you can do that. I'm going to read that. I'm going old school. We have a budget workshop coming up on January 24th. Tracy Novak is coming to us. We're very excited about that. Dorothy, I don't think is coming. I think it's just going to be Tracy. And that will happen at the beginning of our meeting. And our budget workshop with Bob is complete. I love that. So we have a nice, that's in red, complete. And then just continue to develop our understanding of the finance committee guidelines and process, and that we are all continuing to do as we're in the middle of this process.
And also too, I think there is an agenda overview that was sent in the fall that I think reviewed, I'll figure out what the date, that sort of reviewed the changes that the finance committee made. So to their process.
Back to you.
Okay, back to you. So student success and well-being is a big part of our student-centric goals. So one of our biggest ones is, of course, to stay informed. So I have kept a running list of the different kinds of presentations that we've seen that speak to these goals. You'll notice that Cynthia, I just put in the youth risk behavior survey as a placeholder here in that sort of light pink, because we didn't adopt it as part of our formal goals, but I just happen to personally like this survey. So yeah, I think we should be flexible, and maybe, I don't know necessarily, maybe we'll talk with Kristen. I don't know if we can continue to get all of these, 1, 2, 3, 4 in there about the social emotional learning, or if something will get not dumped, but regardless, this will continue to be iterative. And as Lori pointed out, we haven't, we have some, sorry, this keeps jumping. We have some real opportunity to get Kristen in front of us with these pieces. We have completed some of our other more academic things. We had our MCAS presentation in our November 22nd meeting. We also discussed STAR 360. We'll get a secondary end of the year review on that as well. That's why it's only partially complete. We have some other academic oriented items that we haven't yet heard from, but we have heard about SATs and ACTs, access, AP exams, grades, i.e. progress reports, are all obviously things that naturally come at sort of the end of the school year. We did approve a budget initially. There's still lots of work to be done there, but nonetheless, obviously we have really rich policy meetings. There hasn't been anything yet that has sort of squarely intersected with student success and well-being yet. I'm sure we'll get to one. And then, you know, we really have, if we view our meetings as ways to proactively communicate with the community about what the district is doing with respect to student success and well-being, we've actually been able to do that quite successfully. If you look at those, if you look at that list. And then we still will need to schedule a spring forum. March is kind of a long month, so I'm thinking maybe March is a good time for a forum. But I mean, all in all, guys, I think, you know, it's nice to see this very quantified to make sure that we are in fact moving along here. And I'll go to Tracy with DEIB.
Okay. And I think also holding ourselves accountable to it, like, cause it really, like for us, like the exercise is, okay, we talked about this in September and now we can actually go through it and see that we actually are doing what we said we were going to do. So DEIB is ongoing for the DEIB initiative. So we have our equity audit coming to us on January 17th, and Andrew and Dr. Blake and Dr. Warren will be joining us. I think that's a 5 o'clock start. Yes. Yep, that's a 5 o'clock start. And so we should get, we'll get a verbal report then, and then the other report will be after that. That's for the agreement with KW. And then we had our professional development, which we heard about in our October 12th DEIB meeting. And I think that, you know, what I've heard all year is the ongoing PD that's happening in the district through the staff meetings. And I think that's a huge change that we can't communicate that enough to everybody out there, you know, in the public, because that was not part of what we were doing last year. And it's a real concerted effort to really, you know, train every staff member that works for us. So I think that's great. I sit on the CCPA hiring committee. I think we've met twice.
Yeah, we must be due to meeting.
I think we're probably due to meet again. And it's really this great committee. I have to say, like, it's great to have all the teachers' ideas coming in, and how do we hire and retain teachers of color, it's just been a really good, I like a little think tank. So that's been helpful. I'll keep on updating you on that. But Andrew, we did get that diversity and hiring grant from the state, so that was great. We have some blank boxes here with our restorative justice and discipline and the policy right there. Our student achievement, that's yet to come. We will hear that from Kristen, but more
Kristen will be bringing you the restorative justice work too. That's one of the committees she's in.
Yeah, so that is coming to us. Metro ecosystem enrollment and retention. And I think that that's kind of in process. I would put ongoing on that, because we have talked about the different, how to apply to a district, that's all changing, right?
Well, and Millie's message talked about this past week. It looks like they've had I think, I mean, I have nothing to compare it to, but it looked like, I think they had something like 700 or
780 something.
Yeah.
I got a more detailed breakout on another email, and there's a nice response happening.
Applications.
Yeah, so it's applications, all of that that's happening. And then we have another complete to cross-reference with our FY24 budget, and we approved our budgets at our December meeting. And then just our ongoing work is updating our policies. And I think it's definitely, our DEIB work is definitely, we're looking at our policy through that lens also. And it's helpful to have, you know, I actually think that I have to say thank you to Terry, because it's been really helpful to just have everybody at the meetings and participating and to keep us organized. So, you know, it's always good to see this on paper, but
and it's nice to see that there's meaningful policies that intersect with what we want to do for students. It's nice to see that, like, visually here for me.
Yep. And for actually communicating, I mean, I'm not sure we're ever going to say complete. I think it always has to be ongoing. And just getting updates. We've so far had the calculus project, the playbook recognition, but I don't think, you know, if we see something on here that's not complete, I don't think that's a bad thing necessarily. I think that that's ongoing work that should always be happening. So I think, you know, if all of these things aren't read by the end of the year, maybe it means that that's what our commitment has to stay immediately with. So that's our goal update. And if anyone has anything to add to it or comment.
For the diversity for the hiring, do we have any input from the medical director at all?
In that group?
It's in general, when it has to do with any kind of diversity, things like that. that may affect the method. Do we talk to the medical director or are we talking to him?
That would, no, we're definitely talking to the metro directors, sometimes directly, sometimes through him, but they're always getting feedback and connecting. It depends on the position too, to some extent, depending on the hiring.
That Andrew and what medical, so sometimes I wouldn't want there to be a miscommunication, like something, miscommunication that Andrew works for the district and, medical director.
The MECO directors work for us too.
Yeah, but I'm just saying,
So-
he doesn't work for medical, my,
Yeah, you want us to hear their input, which I completely appreciate.
Sometimes I feel like the medical directors kind of get ignored and their input isn't in on a lot of the issues that would affect the medical.
And so
Yeah,
this committee in particular is run by high school teachers.
That's a different.
So that's the committee it's a CCTA committee. And so they manage that whole committee. So it's not Andrew's committee, it's not a MECO committee, it is the CCTA committee. So then. Okay. Anyone else?
Just one question. When we're talking about hiring and retaining, diverse staff, do we talk to our current staff that are diverse or ones who have departed for ideas on how to retain and attract people? Both do that
Extensively. There's cohort groups of diverse staff that are sponsored regularly, and they meet with Andrew or the principals or whoever's going to participate. All departing staff are asked for feedback on whatever they're wanting to share, obviously. And I would say this year, especially, I think our ability to see needs where they are and intervene if necessary or support when necessary. I think there's a growing capacity on us as leaders and a growing culture of people willing to say this just didn't go well and I need you to know that, which allows us to come in and support and in some places address whatever just happened. So it's a work in progress. I admittedly, say that for sure too, but I think some of the right things are growing to try to continue to recruit, support, retain.
And I think at some point that CCTA committee will intersect with the school committee. But it's not, there's nothing yet.
There's nothing
tangible to do with this.
They actually, this was really exciting. Out of that committee came a high school teacher luncheon where the CCTA invited the diverse staff in. And I think that felt very pivotal to us because to feel welcome and belonging here, it has to be among your peers, not just that your principal supports you or whoever. So I think we're seeing, some growing culture change, slow, but growing.
And they also talk about some mentoring opportunities between teachers and setting up teachers with mentors. So I think that that's always helpful when you're trying to retain staff is for teachers to feel as though they do belong in a community. Especially for brand new teachers sometimes, right? I mean, it goes for all teachers. A lot, we do have a mentoring program here, but it's really important to just focus on that. Seth?
Recruitment. What do you guys recruit from?
A number of places, and I won't know all the sources. We've got a number of diverse online platforms where candidates go when they're looking for. We've built, Andrew would do this much better than I'm doing. We've built connections with some of the Black colleges across the country to try to build. It's a pipeline challenge we're trying to bridge. I just met with UMass Lowell to try to have a very direct pipeline with them and even engage student teachers and exposure to prospective teachers that could come in. There's a diverse, like School Springs, our main hub of all jobs, but there's also a diverse educator hub that we're now paying into and providing for national exposure. Andrew will give you the whole list in one of his updates, but we have a wider berth. Is it solving everything? Not yet, but we're trying to find as many opportunities to reach people as possible. This grant that we just got is going to be really interesting because it's allowing us to have funds dedicated solely for the purpose of relocation costs, bonus or incentives to bring people in, educational tuition. If somebody in-house wants, if a tutor wants to become a licensed teacher, that money is actually allowable to foster that in them. So those are new options we haven't had, so we're interested to see how those play out.
Last stats I can throw out there, there's a group called Black Teachers Matter, comes out of
Yes.
Boston, ran by
Yes.
Dr. Karen Hampton. And she helps school districts like this one.
I believe we're definitely, we may be participating. If not, we've looked at it, so I'll bring it back to double check. Thank you.
Okay. All right, so there's where our goals sit, and we will reflect on them again. Now we're on to the search committee director of student services, which we basically need, this will be really brief before we get to the riveting policy that's coming to us from Ms. Rankin. So we are going to need a school committee rep on the search committee for the director of student services. If anyone would like to throw their hat in, and I would have to say, like, whatever you want to do, I mean, we could certainly discuss it at the table, but whatever you want to do, like, just prioritize what you really want to do. And then we'll hopefully match you to what your needs are, and maybe I'll just call you and chat about it.
Can I just remind you of the dates of that? Because that is a finite commitment. The first meeting of the search committee is Tuesday, February 7th at 2:00. The second meeting, and I'll reshare this. I know I sent it to you once, but I'll send it again. February 13th, 2 p.m. Those are probably hybrid or even Zoom, so those are more flexible. Those I don't think you have to be here in person for. The interviews, however, are not that flexible. They are scheduled on Wednesday, March 1st, 8:30 to 3, and March 2nd, 9 to 3. I'll share this with you again for proper here.
What was the second March date?
The next day, the second.
Second, 9:30 to 3. Is anyone at the table dying to do it right now? I kind of am dying to do it. I just wanted to submit that. Does anybody else want into that? I'm just showing you my hand. All right. So moving on to policy. Okay. Let me just send that. Okay. So the policy subcommittee of the whole met last Thursday morning. We had a vibrant conversation about our next batch of pay, which is community relations policies. Thank you to everyone who could make it. So this first section of this policy conversation will be a first read of 14 policies. I'm going to try to be as efficient as possible, and I think what I'm going to do is kind of read through each of the policies, give a quick overview of what the policy is intended to do, what our recommendation is, an overview of what our conversation was about it, and then what our recommendation was coming out of the meeting on Thursday. And then I'll open it up at the end for conversation or comments or questions. I also want to move your mic a little bit closer. Sorry. I also just want to note that we had talked about going through each of the policies and doing a scrub of all of the cross references, which is a very labor intensive. So I will say I have started that, but I have not completed it. So for all of these policies, I will have that aspect of it for our conversation for our second read and not for tonight. So do you want help from anyone here? Like, do you want us to break it up and help you with that? I mean, if anyone's dying to help me, that would be great. But I'm, I volunteered for this role, so I'm also happy to take it on. So better with that if you want to help look through cross references. But anyone? No. Great. So I'm going to jump in. The first policy that we discussed was KBA, which is the school parent relations goal. The purpose of this policy is to set the tone for how schools engage with parents and stress the importance of that relationship. The changes between our current version, which I will note for all of these policies, they have not been touched since 2005 or 2006, so it's been a while on all of them. But between our current version and the new Massachusetts Association of School Committees, or MASC version, are minor. They add the word guardian, so it's not just parent, it's parent or guardian. And then it discusses reaching out to parents, not just on student development, but it adds also engaging with parents on student conduct. So minor edits, our recommendation coming out of the committee was that, the subcommittee was that we adopt the new MASC language. The second policy we reviewed is KBBA, which is the non-custodial parent right. And this policy provides the guidelines by which the schools can release records to non-custodial parents. The content is largely the same with some minor updates based on changes in Mass law. So it's actually important that we adopt the new version so that we are in compliance with Massachusetts law. As a result, the committee recommended that we accept MASC's new language. The next two are forms that are associated with KBBA, the non-custodial parents' rights. They're both forms that Dr. Hunter and her team would be using with families. She indicated she doesn't use them. She relies on legal counsel. So as a result, we're also recommending that we remove KBBAE and KBBAR. The next policy is KBE, which is relations with parent organizations. So this policy outlines how a parent organization can be recognized by the superintendent's office. There are a few updates in the MASC that I think is important to discuss. One is that it adds booster groups. In our current version, it was just PTGs, and it said that it could only be one recognized group per school building, and this new version is unlimited because it's adding boosters, and obviously there are a number of boosters organizations. It also requires that each parent group has or obtains a 501c3 status, and that they must, all spending must comply with federal law relating to equity among student members. So we supported this new MASC version. We just, with one edit, which was to remove the reference at the bottom to ACA, which is the non-discrimination on the basis of sex reference. It already referenced Title IX, which we felt was a sufficient reference. The next policy is KCB, which is community involvement in decision making. So community involvement is critical to the work that we as a school committee, also is critical to the work that the district does. So as a result, we have moved all of the content in KCB has been moved to the first policy in the K, or community relations policy, KA. KA, which we'll be voting on later tonight, sets the tone for all of our engagement with the community. So because this content was moved to KA, we feel like it is appropriately captured, and we're recommending that we remove this policy. The next policy is KCD, which is public gifts to schools. This policy outlines how we can receive gifts, and there were very minor updates to this policy. So we recommended adopting the new MASC language. The next one is KCDA, which is the playground equipment policy. MASC no longer recommends this policy. Playground equipment is considered a gift, so it is automatically included in KCD, the public gifts to schools policy. So it is somewhat redundant, so we're recommending that we remove this policy. Same thing for KCDR, which is the implementation of the playground equipment policy. We're moving that one. The next one is KDB, which is public's right to know. So this policy highlights the citizens' right to information about the schools and the district and how they might go about obtaining it. So there are minor updates. The most significant is that it adds that a website is a valuable resource for citizens to get information. Our policy did not include that because I don't think there was that much information on the website in 2005. So it just adds that you can get a lot of information on the website. If you don't get what you need from the website, of course, you can reach out to the district or the superintendent's office. Otherwise, there were not many major changes, so we recommended adopting the new MASC version. The next policy is KDD, which is the news media relations and the news releases. This policy outlines our approach to working with members of the press. We actually had a lengthy conversation about it, just given how the media environment is changing. MASC recommended policy did not change drastically from our current version, but we made some suggested edits to it, namely changing spokesman to spokesperson. and editing bullets 2 and 3 to give Dr. Hunter kind of the sole authority over media requests, and then she can determine how to manage the press request from there. KHA is public solicitations in the schools. So we all agreed that we do not support, and nor are there currently excessive or even really any solicitations in the schools. This policy is to ensure that it remains that way. So we recommended that we accept the MASC version with a couple of edits. One is to strike the last sentence about the PTG. And the reason is that if the PTG is included in this, it says that they would be included as school groups and governed by the committee's policy on staff solicitation. This would limit their ability to inform families about things that are happening in under their purview. And we don't want that to happen. So we were recommending that we remove the PTG section. And then there is a general note at the bottom that we think was erroneously put there about NEPN classification system that we are also recommending that we remove. We are almost done. KHB is the next one, advertising on school districts. So we've actually had several conversations about this policy, both here at the full committee level and then also in the last 2 policy meetings. We really felt like it needed some tending to, and what we did was, and this new language was in your packet for this evening, but we took an aspect of our current version, a little bit of the new MASC language, and we sort of merged them. Essentially, it is saying that advertising ought to be limited and that it has to be approved first by the school committee before any advertising can take place. That is that exact language is in the email that I sent last week and then also in your packet. KHI is political activity. This policy outlines how staff can and cannot engage in political activities. MASC moved this policy to GBI, which is staff participation in political activities. Our GBI was updated in 2017 and it aligns with the MASC's version. So we recommend removing this policy since it's covered in our current GBI. Visitors in schools, our current policy and the MASC version are currently the same. However, we had some suggested updates to the current version just to ensure that our buildings remain as secure as possible. The main edits are that we change from requesting that guests sign in at the main office to that they're required to sign in. And that it takes place adding that it takes place during school hours because we can't monitor who comes in and out during after school activities. And then we are recommending that we remove the 5th bullet about student visitors. The last one is relations with booster organizations or KJA, because boosters are moved into KBE, which is parent organizations. You no longer need this policy, so we are recommending that we remove it. So that is the list. Comments, questions, or concerns?
Lots of applause.
Like Shakespearean level. Monologue.
Anyone on those 14 policies?
Discussion. Nice work.
I like doing these like in their entirety when they all relate to each other, because there are some intellectual connections that you sometimes just don't see when you do them as kind of one-off. So I really like the way you've done it this year, and I applaud that. It's not a question.
Great. Okay. We moving on to second read. Yeah. Great. All right, this is much faster. Okay. So, at our last meeting, we reviewed 5 policies for a first read. This is our second read, and we'll be voting on these later on in the agenda. The recommendation after both of these meetings, our policy meeting and the first read, was to adopt KA, which is the school community relations goal, as written by MASC, to strike KEC, which is the public complaints about the curriculum or instructional materials, strike KEB, which is public complaints about school personnel, KBER, which is also public complaints about school personnel for the region, and amend KE, which is public complaints to include the MASC language. So that is what that kind of package is what we'll be voting on. I think Tracy in consent agenda. We're going to do it through consent agenda. Yeah. So now is your chance for question, comments, or concerns on that kind of package.
So as I recall,
Correct. Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah, it's all been moved into a general public complaints policy.
So it's just a question about the consent agenda.
Yeah.
So how, so we're just going to be clear, because it really doesn't say here there's not a motion or anything that we're removing. Yeah.
No, so I
Let's
looked,
get it right.
yes, the minutes will get it right. So I watched, I just love watching meetings. It's like my secret thing that I like to do. I watched some of the select board too, and I looked at their agenda and they don't have motions attached. Like we usually have a motion
But they would say
attached.
remove. blah, blah, blah.
Remove, like if anyone wants to remove something from the consent agenda, you can remove it at any point.
So they have bullets, right?
Yeah.
They will say like remove APP, blah, 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 replaces. But I'm just not clear that we're removing three of these and then approving.
She's not talking about removing things from.
No.
the agenda.
Yeah, from the
Not like
consent,
it's
agenda, yes.
If I looked at this,
So I think in our motion language, I would look to someone at the table who really enjoys making motions that might be able to come up with the right language to do this on the consent agenda. I'm not looking really at anyone specifically, but I kind of am. I think, yeah.
Public audience.
Yes.
Adopting and what you are.
Yeah. Yes, yeah.
removable, we can.
Exactly. Also, I could just read the
Exactly. What we're doing.
adopt KA, strike KEC, KED, is one motion. Right. And what we're really trying to do is just to be really efficient at our meetings, because if we've heard it now, we've met in policy, we've done the first read, the second read, we're clear, right. So, no, totally. So I think it would just.
The first time we use
Make sure it's clear.
instrument.
Yes.
Be it
Correctly, yes, totally agree. All right, thank you to Court and Carrie for really putting on your thinking caps live and in the meeting to be able to come up with an appropriate motion. Hey, look at that, great.
Are we there? We're not there yet.
We're not there yet. No, we're not there. We're close though. We're getting there.
Move.
All right, so any other discussion about the second read of the policies? Oh, okay. All right, on to bargaining. So we have two units to bargain with. We have the secretaries and we have maintenance. And typically, there are two members that sit on a bargaining team. Sometimes there's been one. And I learned a lot from doing it last year. It's really helpful when you have someone that's done it before that helps guide you. It's a good way to get your feet wet into bargaining. If anybody's willing to sit and do that, and if you can talk about just maybe what the lift might be.
Sure. So the smaller contracts tend to be a series of about 5 meetings. Probably a pretty good guess. The schedule is set based on the membership's availability. So that would be something we would work with you on. It's not a set schedule. We work with the union and the bargaining representatives here to set the schedule. So usually they're after school. We're not allowed to bargain during the day when they're on the clock. So it would have to be probably 3 o'clock and after.
And these are K-12 bargaining units?
These are both K-12, both districts. Good point. Thank you.
You need Carlisle on both.
You need it. Probably great if you can, but I don't know that it's an absolute. You do for the vote to approve it. Yeah, if you can make it happen, sure.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Can I ask a question? I mean, oh, the school committee gets to bargain with the teachers union?
We have 8 unions the school
Yes.
committee bargains with.
Or I'm getting a text from Aaron, your mic, you gotta use the mic
Sorry.
more appropriate.
Erin, these are new mics for the public that's out there, so bear with us if you can't hear us, and hopefully Minuteman Media will just be like awesome and turn up something on the back end. So just bring them real close. Go
We
ahead.
have 8 bargaining units in our 2 districts, both teacher unions, both building service worker unions, maintenance, high school tutors, and secretary. and transportation.
And we have a great deal of, shall we say, technical support from Bob and Lori.
I'm going to say Denise is on because
Oh, yeah.
helps the HR director. Yes, we need representatives of the committee at the table. So, yeah. Yeah.
Yeah, that's not what I'm accustomed to, but that's good to know.
Great question to
Yeah,
ask.
we usually just bargain with HR, like
Yeah.
labor relations, but
Yeah, no, here we're formal bargaining session.
I wouldn't mind being a part of that.
No. We have to check on.
We have to check on
yeah,
that.
the non-voting.
Yeah,
status.
yeah. Might play into that. We'll check on it. We'll get some advisement on that.
This will be another thing where you would email Tracy anyway.
Yes. So again, like think about it. And the reason that I'm asking on email, I'll just be like really transparent. It doesn't put anyone on the spot in the meeting. So you can just like check your calendar, see what your comfort level is, and just send me an individual email. That makes sense? Okay. If you want to do any of these jobs, so to speak. So sorry, you want two on each. Yep. Secretaries. And it would be really great if someone with experience is on one, you know, like, we don't want to put brand new person on a bargaining. Yeah.
Yeah,
Relatively new people. Yeah. Yeah. Okay, all right. And then the last thing I had in discussion was just remote participation and moving forward, kind of how to do this. And thank you to Cynthia for pointing me in the right direction of different, you know, the town has a policy. Obviously, the governor is allowing for remote participation still through March. The town also has a policy, which I looked at, and there's, you know, Cynthia, would you call it like the Attorney General's office? Is that the open meeting law and remote participation, all that? So,
Right, I mean, we have the classic open meeting
Yep.
law.
Yep.
Now being overridden, one
Yes.
could say by the governor's legislation.
Yep.
Just explain, so I'm fairly confident that something will happen to extend it beyond March. That's
Yeah.
my personal opinion.
Yeah.
They ran out of time. Some smaller, more rural communities feel that, you know, to provide remote participation to every meeting is a technology heavy lift.
Yeah.
Anyway, long story short, they're just trying to find legislation that fits all communities. But the MMA is, you know, very much in favor of extending it as many communities.
Yeah.
But that said, so I'll let you continue.
Yeah, no, so no, it was really helpful to go through and see, you know, even what the town had from 2013 and to participate remotely. And I think all of us have had that opportunity at one point or another where for a business meeting, we've had to be remote, whether it's been like COVID, or quarantined, or you're traveling or whatever. So when I look back to the 2013, one of the things, I mean, it really is they want you in person for your business meeting as much as possible, which we've done a great job at. I really think we have this year, and all of us have been here, which has been hugely helpful. But you can, if you are traveling, or, you know, it's got to be an extenuating circumstance. So I kind of like the hybrid of like, yes, we have the ability for the public to come to our meetings remotely for the and then can do it for these meetings. That's been great. So I think that you look at like in 2013, you can get permission if you need to be remote, if you're traveling for work. I think a lot of us have had that situation, right? So you just have to get permission from the chair to be remote. Now, it does say only one member can participate remotely and the chair cannot be remote. So I bring this up because at our next meeting, Alexa will be remote, but she will not be chairing the Concord meeting. Terry will have to chair the Concord meeting. So
that has a month.
you did? Oh, yeah. Did you? Oh, sorry. Might be news to you. Yeah.
No, I
It's a
did.
reminder. It's a reminder.
I did.
So that's like that law.
Yeah.
We could all be remote right now.
We could be.
I mean, I don't want, I'm just
Right.
saying, there's no one person forum thing
Yeah.
right now. That's probably, I don't know how it's going to change.
Yeah.
But maybe the future meeting, we could do a little more of a deep dive on what really are rules and regulations around asking for remote participation outside of the obvious, you know, COVID positive or something of that sort, or, you know, flu or what have you. You don't want to spread your germs. But
Yeah. And I talked to Dorothy about it too, because I had a meeting with her on this roundtable situation that we're gonna have. Not situation, but the roundtable meetings that we're gonna have. And she said, really, you know, if
all committees are trying to decide what they're doing, right? And if you're really all in, you should really all be there unless it's an like a very extenuating circumstance, but right, like flu, illness, and there are 5 reasons in the town policy. And it is like, illness, it's travel, it's all these extenuating circumstances. So it's just interesting to go back and look at it. And I will send everyone what the 2013 policy was, what the Attorney General policy is. And there was remote participation.
Yeah, I had a little
Sure, right.
flashback as this sort of came up this week. 2018, talk about like worlds of difference. Someone was traveling. I remember who was traveling. I don't remember the topic that they felt so strongly about. They wanted to remote in. I couldn't even tell you the platform we used because we had never used Zoom before. So I don't even know how we did it.
Probably like conference call or.
Yeah, I attended that 19, November of 2019, because in Carlisle, it's as long as there's a forum,
Yeah,
then
that's
forum.
required.
That's the
Yeah.
law. But
Yeah.
it's actually 2 of us, like calling in on somebody's phone on a conference call
right.
with a microphone there. Yep, amplifying our voices.
I remember we were pretty enamored with ourselves about how savvy we were that we had one person remote, and of course, wow, what a lifetime of change has happened since then. But yeah, it was a big thing.
So
Last week, my request was denied.
Mhm.
And I'm curious why, but we don't need to dive into it now necessarily, but it's certainly a legitimate request. And so I'm curious, is what we're discussing tonight relevant only to meetings like this or also to subcommittee meetings?
So I had that conversation with Dorothy, that specific one, because she was, I think she was on all those emails. And what she said, really your subcommittee meetings, like if you have a quorum, just have the meeting like that, like that's the point. She's like, it's a business meeting that you should consider remote participation if there was extenuating circumstances. But if you already have a quorum of the subcommittee, it's really not necessary to do that. That was her
That doesn't
advice.
answer my question. So
Right.
are you saying if there is a quorum, you can deny somebody remote participation?
I mean, in theory, you could deny somebody for, yes.
Why would we? I don't understand.
Well, I think that, you go back to those 5 rules that from 2013. I mean, I think that's the only guidance we can have. And we had decided our subcommittee meetings were not going to have remote participation. Right? We've talked about this a couple times.
Okay.
Yeah.
So what I'm hearing is what we're discussing is relevant to these public meetings of the school committee and not any subcommittee.
Right.
All right, thank you.
And I think the difference too, like the way I think about it is a subcommittee and inability to participate doesn't really disenfranchise a member. There aren't votes taken. All of the business discussed in the subcommittee then comes to the full committee. I don't know. I mean, that's sort of like, I think a big differentiation. Like, I think it's why, we don't put them on, I mean, I know there's other reasons, I guess, we don't put them on MMN to their schedule as much as ours. But to me, those two sort of things are in line with each other. They're not broadcast. So I don't know.
Yeah. Well, it's just, I thought it's important to put on. We had, a member bring it up. So I just thought that we would address it as a group. And I do think that, we had a smaller committee meeting this morning too. It is really helpful to just be in person. And even Dorothy's point about the policy subcommittee, like we are getting a lot done in those committee meetings being in person. And not everybody's there at every meeting, but we have it a quorum at all the meetings. So I think that's been helpful. And then it comes to this meeting anyway for another chance for discussion. So,
Right. And I would anticipate that the select board might update that remote participation 2013 policy, which is kind of out of step with where we're going with remote participation after COVID. So 10 years later, so I guess, different world.
see what they have to say.
Yep.
Okay. All right. And with that, we're going to go on to our action items. And I would look to our policy chair and perhaps Mr. Booth to maybe help us with a motion to approve our policies by consent agenda. And we also have, there is, just so you know, in there, a staff enrollment request also. So it might be tricky, but I think you're up to the task. They add it all in one. Separating it. Okay, and then separate the 6, which then makes it not consent agenda. So we'll pull number 6 from consent agenda and we'll vote on that separately.
Will the school committee adopt the updated policies with consent agenda? Policies KA and KE, and remove policies KEB, KEBR, and KEC.
Any more discussion? All in favor? Aye.
Aye.
Opposed? Okay, great. And then I would entertain a motion to approve the request for staff enrollment. You want me to read it? You can read it. Go ahead. I move that the Concord and Concord Carlisle School Committee vote to approve the following staff requests to enroll their children in Concord Public Schools, Concord Carlisle Regional School District for the 2023-2024 school year, and the tuition will be waived. CMS teacher, son to enroll in kindergarten at Alcott, Carlisle teacher, daughter to enroll in 9th grade at CCA.
Second.
Discussion? All in favor? Aye. Aye.
Aye.
Opposed? And with that, I would entertain a motion to adjourn the Concord Carlisle School Committee meeting, but we are also going to take a 5-minute break just for the audience and because we have a photo op to take. Anyone want to make that motion?
So moved.
Second?
Second.
Favor? Aye. Hey, we'll be back in 5 minutes.
So this is quick and painless. Last year on the 20th, when we were at special town meeting, we adjourned a meeting of the Concord School Committee. What is it, 10, 15 minutes prior? Just like as a sort of, why do we do that? Is it sort of a just in case something happens and we need to be deliberative about something? Yeah.
We don't do anything.
Even if we don't do anything. So that's something that we should in fact probably do again, correct? Everyone is, all right, that's really all I was.
Thursday night.
So it's Thursday night, the 19th. Town meeting begins, is it at 7? So would it be okay to ask that we meet, the Learning Commons, I think is where we did it last time, at 6:45. And we will set an agenda for that meeting, which would include us really just convening.
Yeah, the agenda is.
Yes, right.
Do we know who's presenting?
I met with Dawn and Pat today. I think I'm gonna have some opening remarks and then Dawn's going to present.
And is the town going to present like they did the hearing?
Yes, Bob, how do you say his last name?
Lesher.
Thank you. Bob Lesher has got some slides about the tax impact.
That's it.
Really, that's it.
I just wanted to make sure that everyone was aware and that we were set to do that so that we can in fact.
I know we're probably not going to have much to discuss, but in the interest of getting questions, we have a forum.
Oh,
I would say 6:30.
Yeah.
I'm gonna
6:30?
want to be
Okay.
working with Dawn and
Perfect.
Pat too.
Okay, great.
6:30.
Awesome.
Can we sit together like we did at town meeting or we sit where? I don't know. I think we don't.
We're not the convening.
We did make a request that the select board be seated together.
And we can solve it easily that night.
Well, 'cause
I can
remember they
make
used to
such a
have the ta-
request.
Well, they had the tables before and then they got rid of that. So I
Yeah.
don't know what they're doing. Maybe find out what they're doing. Yeah.
Would you like to sit together? I'll just ask them.
Yeah.
to do that.
Why don't we should, I think, just in case.
Yeah, that's what they did. At regular town meeting, but at the special last there, nobody was seated together.
Right. I was in the car with.
Pretty high COVID. I think that was still part.
Yeah.
of that.
So-
We'll get you a school
brought my
committee
COVID
table.
Town meeting.
Yeah, you sure did.
Everybody, I'm so sorry. Mean to, and I was unmasked and everything.
But we'll have a table up front. I'll just ask them to do that.
Great.
All right. The 6:30 will be, so be on the lookout for that agenda. We will sit together and we'll convene in the Learning Commons at 6:30. That's it.
And we're meeting
The IB first, Tuesday,
Tuesday night, next week.
5 o'clock. So next week, we have a 5 o'clock meeting. That's KW Consulting.
Okay, great. Oh, DIB. Yeah.
Yeah, I got that. We're good. Thank you, regular meeting.
And then we have our next regular meeting in December.
Correct.
Yes.
Been a busy couple weeks, so thank you all for being so.
Thank you.
Yeah,
This is great and I appreciate it. I'll make a motion to adjourn. We don't need to vote.